Okay, so one of the first things we need to talk about is our essential questions. So that we're asking ourselves, how can we rewrite expressions to help solve problems? So we'll be using what we call DC-MAM for that. So I want to go ahead and write that answer on the screen. And that is asking, how do we solve problems containing multiple operations? Again, we can use DC-MAM for that. And lastly, it's asking us, what reoccurring patterns do I see when solving multi-step equations? So that's going to come in our writing. So go ahead and write writing right there. So DC-MAM, now most of us already know what that means. We've heard it in 7th grade on this campus. But just in case you've forgotten, I want everybody to go ahead and write this down. D stands for distributive. So this is a distributive property. This means to distribute. Distribute means something like, maybe you have 4x minus 7 here. And if we're distributing, we're multiplying by the factor of 2. So distribute means to multiply by a factor. Okay, second, C is combine like terms. Combine like terms. So let's go ahead and write that down. Combine like terms, which means we're going to put the families together. So we're going to be talking about families. And that's a skill you learned in 7th grade and also in 6th grade, where you're putting the x's together or the y's or the constants. Next, M means move the smaller variable. So for instance, if you have, so let's write that down, move smaller variable. If you have something like maybe 2x and 7x, the smaller variable would be the 2x. So this is the one you would move. And obviously we all know what A stands for. That is add or subtract. And then the last one is multiply or divide. And so what's really important for everybody to understand is that DC-MAM, the reason why we use it is because this is the exact order that you go in. You start first with the D, then with the C, then with the M, then the A, and the M again. So for DC-MAM, what we're doing is we're going in this exact order. It's like our checkoff list, so that you'll be able to solve these problems using a guide. So let's go ahead and do one example now that we've talked about DC-MAM. You notice on the left-hand side right here, we have DC-MAM written. That's really, really important. You need to always write that. Okay, so our first step is we're going to draw the wall. Now, as you explain your steps, you could literally put step 1, draw your wall. Now, I'm not going to use a lot of words just because there's not a lot of space, and I don't want to make this video 20 minutes. So first we draw our wall. The second thing we're going to have to do is we're going to go ahead and mark that off. C stands for combine like terms. That means terms that are the same family. For instance, we have an A family here. You notice I circle the sign in front of it. I have another A family here. I don't see anything on the other side with A's, so that's my first family. And then my second family are my constants. On my right-hand side, I have a constant here and a constant here. You guys notice I make sure to include the sign in front of it. Okay, so in 7th grade, what we would do is we would go over to the side, and I'm going to go ahead and go down here just because of lack of space. We would go over and we would say, okay, I have the A family and I have the constant family. So for the A family, I have negative 4A and negative A. That's the same as saying negative 1A, okay? For the constant family, I have a positive 3 and I have a negative 2. So I'm sure most of you guys probably remember that from last year. So I'm going to say, okay, these have the same signs. Therefore, let me add. So that gives me 5a. Put your last name. And I have more negatives, so I'm going to make this a negative. Whereas over here, these are different signs. Therefore, I'm going to subtract. I have a 1. And if you notice, I have more positives than negatives, so it's a positive 1. So now all I have to do is go back up to the top, and I can write all of this information in. So on the left-hand side, I have my A family, so I'm going to put that over here. Now I have negative 5a, and I'm still going to bring this down, plus 2. And on my right-hand side, I solved that, and I got positive 1. So I put those families together, and I got positive 1. So now we have a simple one-step equation. I combined like terms. We haven't gotten to this one yet. Move the smaller variable. That's next week. So now I'm just going to have to add or subtract and multiply or divide. So let's do that. This is a simple two-step equation that you did in 7th grade. First, I'm going to always go to the side with the variable. So I'm going to be on the left-hand side of the problem. This first expression right here, negative 5a plus 2. So let's add or subtract. I see that positive 2, I have a plus 2, so I'm going to do the opposite, which is a minus 2. And remember, we always have to balance everything out. If I write it on the left, I got to put it on the right, so on and so forth. Okay, I know this gives me 0, so we always cross this out, make it a 0. And I'm going to look on this side. Different signs. You know what that means. Let's subtract. So 2 take away 1 is 1. And I have more negatives than I have positives, so it's negative 1. Okay, again, I write my equal sign. You notice I just keep doing the same thing. I'm just bringing things down. Negative 5a. Lastly, I'm either going to multiply or divide. Well, here's what I know. I know this means multiplication because they're stuck together. So let's do the opposite of multiplication. Let's do division. So I always draw my fraction bar. So we're going to divide by negative 5 on both sides. You notice we're dividing by negative 5, not just 5. That's really important. I know this crosses out because that becomes a 1. Okay? 1a is just the same as a. That's why I'm just going to write a there. And in this side, I'm going to draw my dead man. And I have, you notice right here, I have 2 negatives. So I'm going to cross these out. So I know my answer is positive. And because it's a fraction, I'm just actually going to leave it positive 1/5 because I really don't want to make this into a decimal. So I'm just going to leave it a equals positive 1/5. So with that in mind, you're going to make sure and do all your explaining of your steps. But because of time, I don't want to go ahead and write all of that. So you're going to pause the video. And first thing you're going to do is you're going to write your steps. Okay, and then the second thing you're going to do is you're going to have a practice problem. So you're going to do that on the back of this paper. So those are the 2 things that you need to be doing right now. Okay, let's go ahead and keep going. So the next piece is an important piece because we're going to be talking a little bit more about the same subject of combining like terms. Okay, so first we're going to do the distributive property. That's the first thing we do. And I notice I have parentheses, so I know I have to distribute. I'm going to do what we did in 7th grade. I'm going to make it a box. It just helps me. Okay, let's distribute these 2 numbers. All right, here's what I need. I see negative and positive, so I'm going to draw 2 dead men. 1 here and 1 here. So with my 2 dead men, sorry, there you go. My 2 dead men, I'm going to go ahead and solve this. So I do 2 times 3. That gives me 6. And I also have my x, so 6x. Okay? I have a negative 2 and a positive 3. So altogether, that makes it a negative 6x. Okay, let's do the other one. I'm doing a negative 2 times a negative 1. Okay? I have a negative 2 and I have a negative 1. Therefore, my answer is a positive. And if I multiply it, I get 2. So again, I'm just going to keep rewriting the problem. Oh, I almost forgot, you guys, my wall. Okay, and I'm going to bring down everything that you see. Okay, so the second one means combine like terms. That means the families. Well, I see families right here. Listen, I don't have any x's besides negative 6x, but I do have a positive 2. Notice I circle the sign in front of it and a positive 4. On the other side, on the right-hand side, I don't see anything but one number. So let's go down to the bottom. And I don't have any variables. I just have a constant. So I actually only need one table. I have a positive 2 and a positive 4. That together, they're the same sign, so positive 6. Okay, so let's rewrite this whole thing. We have a negative 6x. Now I have a positive 6. These combine to give you positive 6. I still have my equal sign, and I still have 18. Okay, now it becomes a normal two-step equation. Remember, we don't have the m just yet. So next I have to add or subtract. Well, that's easy. I always work with the side that has a variable, which means this time it's the left side of the equal sign. So you take this expression, and I'm going to do the opposite of positive 6, which is negative 6. Okay, so do that on both sides. All right, let's cross out what makes 0. Whatever side the variable's on is the side I cross stuff out on. So that's 0. On the other side, I have a positive 18 and a negative 6. That means they're different signs I'm going to subtract. When I subtract 18 minus 6, I get 12. And I have more positives than negatives, so it's positive 12. Okay, so I rewrite my equal sign. Notice I just keep bringing things down again. Let's bring this down. I have negative 6x. Well, the last step says multiply or divide. Well, you notice this always means multiplication if they're stuck together. So let's do the opposite. Let's divide. So we're going to divide both sides by whatever's stuck to the variable. So in this case, it's a negative 6. Okay, we're almost done. This crosses out because it really becomes a 1. So 1x is the same as x. And on this side, 6 goes into 12 2 times. Almost done. I got to draw this dead man so that I can see if it's a positive 2 or a negative 2. Okay, I have a positive 12 and I have a negative 6. Therefore, my answer is a negative 2. So make sure right now what you're going to do for this one is you're going to do the writing, and then you're going to do you're going to do a practice problem on the back of this. So first I want you to write your steps. Just pause your video. And then after that, there's going to be a practice problem that you're going to do on the back of this paper, just where you have empty space. All right, good luck.